Hi everyone. So in the last video we were talking about getting started with somatic movement, and I'm going to assume that you've all gone ahead and done that, and now we're going to talk a little bit about how to kind of enhance your practice, how to get the most out of it and kind of develop what you do in somatic movement to give you the most benefit. So the first thing I'm going to say is don't skip the scans. So as you'll know, if you've done some somatic movement, at the beginning and at the end of the class, we do a check-in with our soma, our living body as we experience it. And we check in with how we're feeling in that moment. And at the end, what has changed. And I think it can be really tempting with this sort of work to go, well, I'm not really doing anything in that bit, so it's not going to benefit me, right? I'm not actually moving. But somatic movement isn't exercise. You don't get the benefit from doing the movements per se. You get the benefit from noticing what's going on because of those movements or during those movements. And part of that is going, well, how have things changed for me? And we need to engage our brain, our conscious brain, in noticing how things shift as we do the work. The other thing is, like, how often, they're often lying down, right? We do some standing scans, we do some walking scans. Often they're lying down. Make the most of it. How often do you get the chance to just lie there for a minute? So that's amazing in and of itself. So no matter, even if it has to be fairly quick because you just got 5 minutes, make sure you do those scans. Okay, so the second thing is what we really, really, really want to avoid doing with somatic movement is doing the movements automatically. So if you find you've been doing your practice for a little while and you're kind of doing your movements like you're not really having to think about it, it's a little bit kind of painting by numbers, it's not very exploratory, you need to inject a bit of curiosity into what is going on and bring a little bit of, like a more sort of beginner's mind, exploratory kind of mindset to it. Because actually, even though you can do, maybe you can do your arch and release and flatten and release with no trouble at all, if we're not noticing what's going on, then we're not really doing somatic movement and we're not changing things at the level of the nervous system. So one way that you can get out of automatic moving and back into curious exploratory moving is to bring in some variety. So using that example of arch and flatten, which is like our kind of bread and butter movement, and I'll put a link to that below, you might be used to doing it kind of, with the head in the middle in a certain way. So how about you try it with your head a little bit tilted to one side and then to the other? What is that like? Or maybe instead of thinking about rolling the pelvis, you think about lifting the ribs. Like, how does that feel different? Maybe you change it up a bit in terms of the movements you do. Maybe you've got a little bit kind of, I do X, Y, and Z movements. Bring in some new ones. You could vary where you inhale and exhale and see what new information that gives you. So thinking about how we can bring some variety in to kind of give us a little bit more information, to change what we sense so that we can change how we move, shake it up a bit. And I would say that is one reason why attending classes or, even if you're listening back to recordings, but they're different every time, that is one of the reasons that can really help you, is because it brings in more variety and stops you kind of getting stuck in a rut with your practice. And that goes even for, people who've been doing it for a while, like me, right? Okay, next thing I'm going to say is slow down. One of my brilliant teachers describes it like if you imagine a car went whizzing past and then someone said, "What did you notice?" You'd be like, you'd hardly notice a thing, right? If the car drove past really slowly and you watched it, and then you had to describe it, you'd be able to give a lot more information, right? The brain finds it so much easier to notice the detail and the nuance and the subtlety of our movement when we move at slower speeds. So in terms of being able to sense what's going on, maybe to make some adjustments, we're going to need to do it slowly. If we go fast, we miss so much. And then that just doesn't benefit us as much, right? Okay, the next point, conversely, is speed up. So hear me out. Once you have practiced some somatics and you've started to move with a little bit more efficiency, maybe there's less pain, maybe you're moving more freely, got a little bit more kind of flexibility in your movement, then you can try speeding some of those movements back up. So somatic movement is all about how we function in real life. And we don't usually get a chance to move really slowly in real life, right? So there is a point in our somatic movement where we want to be trying to do some of the movements a little bit faster. Can you still move with ease even when you bring a little bit more speed back into the movement, right? Can you still move with awareness? All right, next point I'm going to talk about is if you're thinking about, we focus on the contraction and release in somatic movement, the pandiculating of the muscles, contracting, releasing, taking that moment to integrate. What we can also do to kind of level up in our practice is think about the opposing set of muscles as well. So for example, if you want to pandiculate the muscles in the front of the body, so you're contracting and releasing and you're resetting that resting level of tension, how much harder is it going to make it if you try and contract the front, say you're going to try and lean forwards, how much harder would it make it if the back muscles are also contracting, right? What happens if you do your flatten, for example, so you're pandiculating the front, but you also put some attention on the back? Can you let go in the back to make it easier to contract through the front? Okay, so that'll just like level you up. If you want to try it, go ahead, but please be really careful. It's not very pleasant. Say you were standing and you wanted to bend forward, the muscles in the front are going to tighten. If you keep the back tight, it makes it very kind of stiff, basically. And then you can try letting the muscles in the back go and see how that's different. But do take it easy, don't push anything, of course. And actually, that brings me nicely on to the last point that I want to make, and that is don't overdo it. So I think this is probably the most common mistake in our early somatic movement practice. We try really hard, we're like efforting a lot. So maybe we're trying really hard to get into a certain position or to achieve a certain movement or to get things right. We are so used to pushing ourselves, to kind of having a target, something to aim for. We don't have to do that anymore. We don't have to do that with somatic movement. Can we go into it a beginner's mind? Can we explore with an open mind, be open to possibility? Can we find ways to make movement easier? So if you ever feel in somatic movement like you're pushing yourself, you're stretching, straining, efforting, can you tone it down a bit? Can you dial it back? Can you just make it feel easy? Okay, that's what I got for you today. Let me know what resonates. I will put that link to the arch and flatten below this video, and yeah, enjoy moving. I'll see you soon.